What's up everyone, welcome back to a new video. Today's video I'm going to be giving you the schedule for week 6 of fantasy hockey, breaking down some of my favorite streamers going into week 6, which is in my opinion one of the most important ways to help leverage your fantasy schedule and win your week each and every week, as well as giving you some of my favorite must-add players based on their new deployment, minutes, or just overall production over the last couple of weeks. This is going to be a good video guys, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. So jumping right into this, and let me know in the comment section below if you like a different style of video, but I like breaking down the schedule to begin to kind of give you an idea on what the schedule will look like throughout the week. Everything's available over on Daily Faceoff is what I use, and I also use for determining the best schedules each week is our own fantasy puck schedule breakdown that Don does in the background. So looking at the week 6 schedule, it's the same as a regular week, but this week we have a lot more games on the off nights, whereas last week it was like one game into 16 games into one game into 10 games. Super weird schedule. But at least on the off nights, we actually have multiple teams to choose from, which kind of gives us a better idea of players to add. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, always the off nights, 4, 4, 4, and 5 games, which is way, way better than the 1 games, because you could get sewered a little bit if you don't have players that are playing on those off nights, and you only have one guy in your lineup, or your opponent might have 3 or 4 depending on guys on their roster. So this adds a little bit more parity, a little bit more variance to the schedule. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, busy nights, not overly busy, 9, 10, and 13 games. Saturday's always a hectic night where you have to roster basically everyone on your team and have to put some good players onto your bench. Now let's jump out into the best teams, or the teams that have the best schedule in week 6. So there are a lot of teams that have 4 games scheduled for this week, but I want to pinpoint the teams that have at least 3 off night games, because that's when you can maximize your schedule for the week. Now it's good when you on your team, it's bad when you do have guys that are on IR plus, but you can kind of use that to stream players, and that's likely what I do in a lot of my leagues. Is I'll toss guys on IR plus, open up a few roster spots, and then start adding these guys on Saturday or Sunday, contingent on how well my team is doing for that week. So if I'm well ahead on Sunday night, I will typically add 1 or 2 players from these really good scheduled teams to help prep me for next week, but also utilizing my ads for the week prior. Then it allows me to have my 4 ads that reset in the new week for the week after that. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's typically how I like to play the streamers. So 3 teams have very good schedules this week. New York Rangers, 4 total games, 3 games on off nights, Monday, Wednesday, Sunday. The New York Islanders, 4 total games, 3 off night games, Monday, Thursday, Sunday. And then the Nashville Predators with 3 total games and 3 off night games, Monday, Thursday, and Sunday. So similar schedules across the board with all 3 of these teams playing on Monday and Sunday. The difference being is that the Rangers do play on that Wednesday. So this allows you to kind of leverage those off night games and maximize your schedule for the week. Let's jump into some of my favorite streamers for this upcoming week. Starting us off here with Will Cooley of the New York Rangers, likely a more shallower league type of ad, but he is definitely my top priority right now in the New York Rangers. Left wing, right wing eligible, has been a very productive player offensively, as well as a very good hit volume player, and he's one of the best on this list. Emil Heineman is also a very strong hit volume player. Will Cooley has a very strong floor because of that hit and shot volume. Now, I did see just recently he has moved up to the top power play unit as of November 6th. I'm recording on November 6th. So I did see he has moved up to the top power play unit in place of Alexis Lafreniere. The only thing is that Vincent Trocheck is now traveling with the Rangers, which means he will likely be back in the next couple of days and will again retain that power play 1 spot. But Cooley has been playing very good minutes in a top 6 role for all of this season, making him my highest priority ad for this week. Now, Alexis Lafreniere has been kind of a disastrous career in general for him and hasn't been the strongest player this season. I was extremely surprised, and you also may be too, that his ownership percentage is at just 18% right now. Left wing, right wing eligible. He's still skating on the first line with JT Miller and Artemi Panarin as of November 6th. So still good upside there. We'll see what the changes ends up going with the lineups, with Vincent Trocheck returning back to the lineup in the next couple of days. He's not on power play 1 anymore, but still has decent upside and should be available in some of those deeper leagues. Cal Palmieri was a streamer from a couple of weeks ago, and he looks to be another strong streaming option again this week. Him and Anders Lee both have very strong shot volume. Palmieri's actually have been pretty productive offensively. He's on the top power play unit. He gets a decent amount of shots. And at 15% rostered, he's not a big name player, so he's likely available in most leagues right now. Anders Lee, very similar to Palmieri, except he has really strong hit volume on top of his strong shot volume. His minutes are starting to scale up slowly. That team is very desperate for offense. They scratched Barzal recently, which was a big surprise, but if I'm not mistaken, he was late to practice or slept in. So I like the upside with Anders Lee here. Also gets some power play time, plays in the top 6, about 15 to 16-ish minutes. So another great streaming option from Anders Lee. Now, if you're looking for more of a floor play with decent hit volume, Emil Heineman's up to 51 hits so far this season, left wing, right wing eligible. Again, the ownership percentage on some of these Islanders players are a little high because of they were a very good streaming option a couple of weeks ago, and they have had strong starts to the season. So these are the 3 players from the Islanders I like. Now, for Nashville, it's difficult because they're kind of splitting their power play up right now. But I definitely wanted to grab someone that is getting good power play minutes, is playing good minutes in general, and that's Ryan O'Reilly, who has 3 off-night games this week. The center position is very full, but to me, it's really unlikely that you're going to be rostering multiple centers on those off nights and have to bench Ryan O'Reilly. But make sure you look at your lineup, kind of go through the days on your Yahoo app or your Fantrax app. Go through the days and just see, are you able to roster a centerman on those off nights next week? If you are, I definitely love the upside with Ryan O'Reilly here, who we know plays huge minutes, 19 plus per night on the top power play unit. Nashville hasn't really been a strong team in general, but I like the upside with O'Reilly going into week 6. So with defensemen here, I typically like to grab a defenseman that has power play time, preferably power play 1, or that has really strong peripherals and plays huge minutes. So Brady Shea ticks both of those boxes, except his peripherals just aren't really that strong, but he's still on the top power play unit with Roman Josi out, playing 23 plus minutes per night. At just 4% rostered, he seems like a very, very strong streaming option for defensemen. I typically like to prioritize streaming forwards, but if you need a defenseman here to fill out your roster for next week, I love the upside with Brady Shea at just 4% roster, meaning he's available in a lot of those deeper leagues. Now, Tony DeAngelo has lost the reins on the top power play unit to the phenom Matt Schaefer in the early going, but he's still getting pretty good minutes, about 17 to 20 per night. He has pretty good shot volume and block volume. I like the upside here from DeAngelo. A little bit of risk versus Brady Shea, who we know is playing huge minutes every night. Just kind of lacks the peripherals relative to DeAngelo, but the streaming upside is still there. Vladislav Gavrikov is the last defenseman for this list from the New York Rangers. Again, we know Adam Fox is that massive playing defenseman, top pair, power play 1, was drafted likely in the top 5 rounds, so that means he's very unavailable across all leagues. But Gavrikov is playing great minutes for the Rangers right now, about 22 plus minutes per night. The fantasy points per game in standard Yahoo leagues is about 5 to 6 right now. So pretty good if you get him for those 4 games this week, can maybe give you 20 plus points. And for a streamer option on defense, that's pretty solid. Now, the 3 goaltenders here, 1 from each team. Jonathan Quick, 4 games this week, 3 off nights, meaning there's a good chance he will play 1 of those games. It's difficult to stream goalies. I find goalies are more of like an ad hoc basis where you just add them when they start, and if you don't have a goaltender starting. But it's good to try and pick and choose those spots on the off nights to stream your goaltenders, because if you roster 3 or if you roster 2 goalies on the busy nights, it's very likely that they will be starting. So Quick into Riddick, into a Noonan would be the last goalie. That would be my order of goalies that I would look to stream. A Noonan probably isn't a major priority unless you desperately need a goaltender and the matchup is strong. But I like the upside with Quick. He's been pretty good as a backup goaltender for the Rangers. And David Riddick has been a better than Ilya Sorokin to start the season. But he does get the more favorable matchups than Sorokin does. So I hope his numbers are a little bit better. But Sorokin's had a very, very bad start to the season. So I don't mind the option of Quick and Riddick, but a Noonan, he's my last priority streamer. If you absolutely need someone and he's starting over UC Saros this week, you can definitely look to go to him. Okay, so let's jump into my favorite ads for this week. These are players that are in much better spots, have been producing at a very strong level. And starting us off with Jack Roslovic of the Edmonton Oilers, center right wing eligible. I mentioned him in my Everything Has Changed video when he was about 3% rostered. And I went and looked at the FPPL, and Barks, if you're watching, I sent him a message on Discord I couldn't believe he was rostering Roslovic after one good game, but he did tell me he's an Oilers fan. He's been watching him. The shot volume has been great with 31 shots on goal so far this season, 8 points, averaging 16:37 average time on ice, which is ticking up significantly recently, and 3 points on the power play. So one thing to note with Roslovic here is he's a good short-term ad for now. There is news that like Hyman is close to being ready, but not fully ready right now. So just keep an eye on that. I think if Hyman does come back, Roslovic should lose that power play one role, but still will continue to play in the top six. But I love the upside with him playing on that devastating Oilers one power play. Moving on, the 11th overall pick of last season, Ben Kindle of the Pittsburgh Pirates, of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's a centerman, which makes it a little bit more difficult to roster, but he should gain winger eligibility eventually. Just 4% rostered here. His minutes are 14:02, but when he played against the Leafs in the most recent game, he was by far the most dangerous player. And go look at the minutes he played, over 22, and he was on top power play with Rickard Rakell injured, was playing late in the game with the goalie pulled. So a lot of upside from here. He had 12 shot attempts and 7 shots on net in that night. So I'm keeping a very close eye on Ben Kindle. I see he's starting to get added a little bit tonight. So let's keep an eye on that roster percentage, but 14:02 average time on ice, 5 points, 2 points on the power play, and 26 shots on goal. The minutes are great from him. And if I'm not mistaken, I saw a stat that he's like one of 11 players outside of the top 10 to make the team in their first year. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I saw a tweet about that. So very interesting stat, but I love the upside with Ben Kindle here. Moving on, Matt Zuccarello, way ahead of schedule right now. He was supposed to be out until the end of November, but it looks like his timeline has shifted up significantly, and he could be back from the IR as soon as the next couple of days. So I obviously don't have his totals from this year, so I went and looked at his numbers from last year. I'm close to 20 minutes time on ice, which is really strong. 54 points, 16 points on the power play, and 151 shots on goal. Just 12% rostered. So there's 88% of leagues right now that you can just add Zuccarello and put him on your IR plus. And then when he comes back, make a decision if you think you should be keeping him or just stash him there. And you won't be able to make any ads if he's activated on his team and on Yahoo. And if he's playing, you won't be able to make moves, but you can kind of see where he will fit into the lineup. And the biggest thing to look for is his minutes and his deployment. My assumption is he's going to go right back to the top line, right back to the top power play unit beside Kirill Kaprizov, which is where you want the exposure on the Minnesota Wild. And with Matt Zuccarello here, he's going to take the spot of Vladimir Tarasenko in the top power play unit. He is going into his age 38 season, but at age 37, he had 54 points in under 70 games and still played close to 20 minutes per night. So I love this as an IR stash and a lot of upside there. Moving on to Vander Kane. So that ownership percentage is very unfortunate because the Vancouver Canucks had one of the best schedules last week, which means that ownership percentage is going to go way up. Just came off of a 10-shot game for the Vancouver Canucks, and we're starting to see those peripherals go back to where Vander Kane kind of had his bread and butter value in fantasy. So he's averaging over 17 minutes time on ice, 8 points, 2 points on the power play, 44 shots, and 31 hits. Very strong peripherals for a guy that's under 50% rostered right now. His minutes are beginning to uptick, and we're seeing a huge increase in his shot volume and hit volume right now. So I love the upside with Evander Kane right now. I roster him in 3 leagues. I did draft him in a couple just for that upside because he was skating power play 1 in preseason. So continue to hold Evander Kane. If you own him, definitely continue to hold if you were streaming him last week. Love the upside from him here. That 10-shot game is a lot to look forward to with Evander Kane because that's what he used to do when he was that elite fantasy player with the shot and hit volume. Rounding out this list, I'm going to jump over to some defensemen that I really like right now. So we have a couple defensemen on this list that are currently playing on the top power play unit that are very low owned. So starting us off with Oliver Ekman-Larsson, we saw a change as of 2 nights ago that Morgan Rielly is now off the top power play unit. Oliver Ekman-Larsson is returning back to the top power play unit. We saw this a lot last year between the two of them where they were kind of flip-flopping quite a bit to start the season, and they ultimately just went with a 5 forward power play unit. No Mitch Marner there right now, so they probably won't go back to a 5 forward power play unit, which means Oliver Ekman-Larsson should continue to take the reins as that power play 1 defenseman. So his totals this season averaging over 20 minutes per night, 9 points, 2 points on the power play, 16 shots, 19 hits, and 14 blocks. With him on the top unit, I love the upside. The point numbers have been very strong to start the season, as well as he's contributing at a decent rate, not elite, but above average rate in the peripheral categories for a defenseman. So I love the upside with Oliver Ekman-Larsson right now. Cam York was a guy I was high on a couple of years ago, and now he started the season off with injury, has returned back, he's healthy, and has been very strong. 24-55 average time on ice, 7 points, 5 points on the power play, 5 shots on goal, just 1 hit, so the shots and hits aren't good. But the block numbers are good, the point numbers have been solid. He's on a power play 1B. They're kind of doing this thing in Philly like they did last year, where they kind of wonder why their power play hasn't been good, and then they roll out kind of a half good power play and a half good power play, and rather than just a full good one. But it looks like York is playing huge minutes right now. Rick Tocchet loves what he sees out of him. He's averaging over 25 minutes over his last 14 games and just under 25 on the season. So I love the minutes upside. I'm seeing he's getting added quite a bit for tonight as well. So keep an eye on his ownership percentage, but I love the upside with Cam York here. The next priority defenseman for me, Jared Spurgeon of the Minnesota Wild. Zeev Buium may be getting sent down the next couple of days. I've read some reports that he might just be going to play in the AHL for a little bit. Jared Spurgeon has taken over that top power play duties. It's weird because Brock Faber's peripherals and his shot volume have been extremely good, but he's not in the top power play unit, whereas Jared Spurgeon's peripherals have been okay, and he's not producing huge power play points. But I love the upside here. Minnesota has a very strong power play. With Zuccarello returning, as I mentioned in the last bit, should only make it that much better. Averaging just over 21 minutes time on ice, 3 points, 2 points on the power play, and relatively strong peripherals. I like him as long as he continues to quarterback that top power play unit. And with Williams' minutes down under 15 per night over the last couple of games, there's a lot of minutes to spare for Spurgeon and for Faber on that top pair. Lastly, John Klingberg returned from injury, retook over the top power play role. The Sharks have been rolling offensively, and Macklin Celebrini is looking like a top 10 player in fantasy right now, and Klingberg is going to be a good benefactor of that. Had power play goal just last night, playing under 21 minutes per night, but still getting power play 1 opportunities, 5 points, 3 points on the power play. Don't expect huge peripherals out of Klingberg, but again, as long as he's playing on the top power play unit, he definitely has a lot of upside, and this Sharks team doesn't look as bad as they did last season. They should still continue to tank for McKenna, but they've been rolling offensively, and you definitely want to be rolling with that power play 1 quarterback in John Klingberg. So again, continue to monitor, but it looks like he is a staple in that top power play unit as the quarterback. That will do it for the Week 6 must-add players video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.